This week, more studio employees come out to talk about the inhumane working conditions during development of high-profile games, this time featuring NetherRealm and Epic. And good lord, what have they done to Sonic? You want nightmare fuel? You'll get all that and more on this edition of The Rundown. Over the past few months, there's been an interesting movement of video game developers coming out and talking about their experiences working on some of the high-profile games that we've come to love. The most notable and recent being former and current BioWare employees talking about the stressful working conditions when working on Anthem and just what happened with the game. Perhaps in hopes that this would inspire other developers to speak up about their own conditions, and if that was the case, it worked. Former and current NetherRealm Studios employees talked about working 80 to 100-hour work weeks for months at a time, and that contractors had to struggle with similar hours and lower pay. Many of these developers took to Twitter explaining their situation at the studio when working on games like Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and Injustice 2. Former QA analyst Rebecca Rothschild explained that during her time, conditions hadn't changed as the studio moved from Mortal Kombat 10 to Injustice 2. Instead, conditions only worsened. All of this sparked forth once news came out about Epic Games' situation and the development of Fortnite, a constantly evolving free-to-play game as a service. Fortnite is considered one of, if not the most popular game in the world currently, but that success has certainly come at a cost if what Epic employees are telling us is true. Polygon conducted an interview with dozens of employees at Epic to talk about the success of the game and the stories of former and current employees that had hands-on with its development. These range from 70 to 100-hour work weeks for months on end during crunch, and how some employees would be at risk of being let go if they requested time off, and that getting any time off was an achievement. Following all this development crunch talk, Respawn has come under fire from its fan base over the fact that its content release frequency for Apex Legends has been rather slow in comparison to its competition, such as Fortnite for example. Respawn issued an official statement in a blog post regarding the criticism, stating that while they would like to increase the production and release of content more frequently, they would rather not do so at the risk of their employees' well-being. Meanwhile, some Respawn employees have taken to Twitter responding to criticism about the game's lack of content, stating that many of them have been crunching since the game's release over 11 weeks ago. This is a lot to take in. I can definitely say that I'm happy to see more employees coming out and talking about the awful conditions they either face or have faced when working at these studios, particularly in NetherRealm and Epic's case. One former NetherRealm employee even stated that she got paid less than the others simply because she's a woman, driving home just how inhumane the work culture truly is. And while Fortnite might have set the bar for games of its type, it has come at quite a cost to its employees' overall health. I mean, you can't make games if no one is alive or well enough to make them, and I think that is one point that Respawn was trying to make with their statement as well. But all this is a clear sign that something needs to change, and the more people that speak up, the sooner it will happen. And that we shouldn't let the culture of fear stop us from feeling as though we deserve better. Earlier this week, Gearbox finally hit us with a significant chunk of gameplay for Borderlands 3, and also hit us with a plethora of new details about the game. The demo showcased 2 of the 4 hunters, Amara and Zane, and their skill trees, stating that each character will have a different skill per tree. They also revealed interstellar travel, a spaceship hub that is customizable, scalable loot and levels, and much, much more. At the event, Randy Pitchford also stated that there will be no free-to-play junk or microtransactions nonsense, which later details indicated that this may not entirely be true, and the demand for clarification and accusations of lying have led Randy down an 18-tweet rant to clarify what he actually meant. He states that the game's post-launch plans are in flux, and that there will be cosmetic DLC and more depending on what the player base wants, and that the game, if anything, will fit along the lines of how Borderlands 2 handled its DLC. But then you look at what the additions of Borderlands 3 come with, you see things like XP boosts and the like, which has raised a few eyebrows. When I look at what Borderlands 2 did, it had a lot of DLC, story-based, cosmetic, new characters, etc. It's hard for me to call all of that content microtransactions because of my definition of what it means to be a microtransaction. The game didn't have a separate currency that players could spend real money on for extra boosts, skins, etc. And none of it really offered a gameplay advantage outside of, hey, here's a reason to play more of the game. So personally, this aspect of it doesn't bother me. However, when you total all of that DLC for Borderlands 2 together, it was hundreds of dollars worth. But this was all released over time and not all together in one lump sum. Plus, all of it is now included with the collections of Game of the Year editions that you can buy for $60, so it's no longer a real issue. At the very least, if it bothers you, I would say just wait for the inevitable collections that will come with everything at a flat price. Finally, to make sure you don't get any sleep tonight, Sega and Paramount have finally released the very first trailer for the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog live-action movie. And sweet Jesus, what have they done? Images and posters have trickled out over time since this announcement, which led many to believe that something was amiss. But seeing it in action is a different story entirely. The movie also features Jim Carrey as Dr. Ivo Robotnik, featuring hair and an average human figure. Following this, the internet is taken to do what it does best: memes. And they are plentiful. The movie's director Jeff Fowler has taken the criticisms to heart about Sonic's design in the movie and pledges that the studio will change Sonic's design and improve it. My take on all this? We are too far gone. This cannot be saved. And with that, we've reached the end of another edition of The Rundown. There's a lot going on behind the scenes in game development, and it's clear that working conditions need change. As much as we all love video games, it's easy to completely diminish the importance of the human beings that make them. So it's about time they start getting the respect they deserve. Don't know if I can preach the good preach about that Sonic movie though. If you can preach the good preach, leave a comment below and like and subscribe if you enjoyed this week's rundown. As always, this is Kurt Ronan telling you to stay sharp, assassins, and I'll see you next time.